In life, we often encounter conflicts, whether within our families, at work, or even on a global scale. The way we approach these conflicts is shaped by our internal mindset, and this mindset can either escalate tension or foster understanding. The concept of the heart at war is a central idea in the anatomy of peace. It describes a state of mind where we see others as threats, obstacles, or enemies to our own desires or needs. When we're in this mindset, every interaction becomes a battlefield. We may feel justified in our anger, defensiveness, or resentment, and these emotions often lead to hostile actions that only deepen the conflict. When we approach conflict from a heart at war, we start to objectify others, viewing them not as fellow human beings with their own perspectives and struggles but as mere obstacles to our goals. Our reactions become automatic and self-serving, and it becomes incredibly difficult to see the bigger picture. The conversation shifts from a constructive dialogue to a game of winning and losing, where the end result is often further estrangement and unresolved tension. But what if we could shift this internal mindset and instead cultivate a heart at peace? Adopting a heart at peace is not about avoiding conflict or suppressing emotions. It's about approaching situations with openness, empathy, and a willingness to understand. This shift in perspective allows us to see others as human beings with their own struggles, needs, and desires. We begin to see them not as obstacles, but as partners in the process of finding a mutually beneficial solution. A heart at peace is characterized by calmness, compassion, and a focus on connection rather than confrontation. It invites us to pause, breathe, and respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. When we adopt this mindset, we open the door to more meaningful and constructive conversations. Instead of escalating the situation, we're able to engage in dialogue that focuses on understanding the root causes of the conflict and finding ways to resolve them peacefully. For example, in a workplace dispute, the heart at war might manifest as defensiveness or blaming the other party. We may feel that the other person is out to undermine us or take credit for our work. In contrast, a heart at peace would allow us to step back, see the situation from the other person's perspective, and engage in a conversation aimed at finding a resolution that acknowledges everyone's needs and concerns. This internal transformation, shifting from a heart at war to a heart at peace, is essential for resolving conflicts, whether personal, professional, or global. It requires self-awareness and emotional intelligence, as we must recognize when our own thoughts and emotions are fueling conflict. But once we make that shift, the way we engage with others changes dramatically. Conflict becomes less about winning and more about understanding and collaboration. We begin to experience the profound power of peace, not just in the outcomes of our conflicts, but in the relationships we build along the way. When we find ourselves in the midst of conflict, it's all too easy to point fingers, place blame, and focus on how the other person has wronged us. Whether it's a disagreement with a colleague, a misunderstanding with a loved one, or a larger societal or political clash, our initial instinct often leans toward defending ourselves, proving our point, or trying to change the other person's perspective. However, the anatomy of peace offers a powerful and transformative concept. Rather than focusing on what others are doing wrong, we must turn our gaze inward and examine our own role in the conflict. Self-reflection is the cornerstone of true conflict resolution. It's the process of stepping back from the emotional turmoil and asking ourselves, what part of this conflict is mine to own? How am I contributing to the escalation of this situation? This approach might seem counterintuitive, as our natural inclination is to focus on the actions and intentions of others. But it is through examining our own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that we gain the clarity needed to resolve conflicts peacefully. In the book, the authors emphasize that the key to effective conflict resolution lies in recognizing that we are often just as much a part of the problem as the other person. Our biases, assumptions, and preconceived notions may cloud our judgment and influence how we interpret the other person's actions. When we engage in self-reflection, we begin to uncover the ways in which we've allowed our own thoughts and emotions to fuel the conflict. For example, when we feel threatened or misunderstood, we might respond defensively, escalating the situation rather than calming it down. We might hold on to past grudges or view the other person as an adversary, which only reinforces the cycle of blame and division, but through self-reflection, we can break that cycle. It requires us to ask tough questions about our own behavior, to confront the biases we hold, and to recognize how we may be contributing to the tension. This doesn't mean taking all the blame for the conflict, but rather understanding our own role in the interaction and identifying where we might have acted out of fear, pride, or misunderstanding. When we do this, we create space for personal growth and reconciliation. Point 1. Practical application of self-reflection in conflict resolution is the practice of checking our assumptions. Often, when we're in the heat of a conflict, we make assumptions about the other person's intentions or motives. These assumptions are often based on our own fears, insecurities, or past experiences, and they can cloud our ability to see the situation clearly. By pausing to reflect on whether our assumptions are truly accurate or whether they are based on assumptions or stereotypes, we open ourselves to a more balanced and open-minded approach. Another critical aspect of self-reflection is examining our emotional responses. It's natural to feel upset, frustrated, or hurt during conflict, but these emotions can cloud our judgment and prevent us from engaging in meaningful dialogue. By reflecting on why we feel the way we do, we can better understand the underlying triggers of our emotions. This allows us to respond more thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. In practice, self-reflection can look like taking a few moments before responding in a heated conversation to check in with ourselves. What am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this way? How might my emotions be influencing the way I'm interpreting this situation? It might also involve journaling, meditation, or talking through the conflict with a trusted friend or counselor to gain new perspectives. Ultimately, self-reflection empowers us to take responsibility for our actions and to approach conflict resolution with humility and clarity. It shifts the focus away from blame and toward personal accountability, which is essential for building trust and fostering long-term peace. By looking inward, we unlock the ability to change not just the way we handle conflict, but also the way we relate to others, creating more authentic, empathetic, and effective interactions. Empathy is one of the most powerful tools we have in resolving conflict, and it plays a central role in the process of transformation outlined in the Anatomy of Peace. At its core, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. It goes beyond sympathy, which involves feeling pity for someone, to a deeper connection where we actively try to see the world through the other person's eyes. This is a crucial aspect of conflict resolution because it helps us break down the walls of misunderstanding, anger, and defensiveness that often arise during disputes. When we empathize with others, we stop viewing them solely as adversaries or obstacles. Instead, we recognize their humanity, their struggles, their fears, their desires, and their vulnerabilities. This shift in perspective is transformative. Empathy allows us to engage in conflict not with the intention to win or defeat the other person, but with the aim of understanding and finding a solution that respects both parties. One of the main reasons conflicts escalate is that we often approach them with preconceived notions or judgments about the other person. We see them through the lens of our own experiences and emotions, which can make us react defensively or with anger. For example, if we feel that someone has wronged us or doesn't understand our point of view, we might respond by becoming entrenched in our own position, unwilling to hear the other side. However, empathy allows us to step outside of our own perspective and truly listen to the other person. We begin to ask questions like, why do they feel this way? What experiences might have led them to this belief? What are they hoping to achieve from this situation? This kind of listening is more than just hearing words. It's about engaging with the emotions behind those words. It's about recognizing the underlying needs and motivations that drive the other person's actions. When we empathize with someone, we acknowledge their feelings and validate their experience. This doesn't mean we have to agree with them, but it does mean that we respect their point of view and recognize that their feelings are just as important as our own. For example, in a family disagreement, one person might be upset because they feel unheard or dismissed. Instead of simply trying to prove that their viewpoint is correct, empathy allows us to understand the root cause of their frustration. By listening with an open heart, we can uncover the emotional needs that have been unmet, which may lead to a more compassionate and thoughtful resolution. We might say, "I understand that you feel ignored in this situation, and I can see how that would be hurtful. Let's work together to ensure that everyone's voice is heard moving forward." Empathy also plays a key role in de-escalating tense situations. When emotions are running high, people often feel that they are not being understood. This lack of understanding fuels frustration and anger, making it harder to find common ground. By practicing empathy, we can provide the validation that the other person is seeking, which in turn helps to lower emotional defenses. When people feel heard, they are more likely to lower their guard and engage in constructive dialogue. In the workplace, empathy can be particularly powerful. Imagine a colleague who is consistently difficult or uncooperative. Rather than labeling them as difficult, empathy invites us to explore what might be driving their behavior. Are they feeling overwhelmed, insecure, or unsupported? By understanding their emotional state, we can approach the situation with more compassion and find ways to collaborate effectively, rather than creating further division. Another important aspect of empathy is its ability to promote healing. In many conflicts, the damage goes beyond the disagreement itself. It can harm relationships and create long-lasting resentment. Empathy, however, provides an opportunity for emotional healing. By acknowledging the pain or hurt that someone else has experienced, we can help mend the emotional wounds that often accompany conflict. This creates a space for mutual respect and trust to rebuild, which is essential for long-term peace. To incorporate empathy into everyday conflict resolution, we can begin by practicing active listening. This involves not only paying attention to the words being spoken but also to the emotions and non-verbal cues that accompany those words. We can ask open-ended questions that invite the other person to share their perspective in a non-threatening way. And perhaps most importantly, we can communicate our understanding by reflecting back what we've heard, saying things like, "It sounds like you're feeling frustrated because," or "I can see that this issue is really important to you." Ultimately, empathy is a bridge between two people. It creates a shared space where both individuals can express themselves without fear of judgment or dismissal. By leading with empathy, we transform conflict from a battlefield into an opportunity for connection, understanding, and resolution. In The Anatomy of Peace, one of the most profound metaphors explored is the concept of being in the box. This metaphor is central to understanding how we view others during conflicts and how our internal mindset shapes our behavior. Being in the box refers to a state in which we objectify others, seeing them not as human beings with their own needs, perspectives, and feelings, but as obstacles, threats, or tools to be used for our own benefit. This mentality traps us in a narrow, self-centered perspective, and it profoundly affects the way we interact with others. When we're in the box, our perception of others is distorted. We view them as less than human, often focusing on their flaws, mistakes, or behaviors that irritate us, rather than seeing them as complex individuals with their own valid experiences. This often leads to a dynamic where we treat others as objects to be manipulated, blamed, or judged. Our actions in this state are typically defensive, antagonistic, or dismissive, and the outcome is usually escalating conflict, rather than resolution. The authors of The Anatomy of Peace describe being in the box as a state of emotional and mental confinement, where we're unable to see the humanity in others. In this state, we might say things like, "They never understand me," or "They're just trying to get in my way." We fail to acknowledge the other person's perspective, and as a result, our actions become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more we objectify others and focus on their perceived flaws, the more we reinforce the idea that they are obstacles, and the cycle of misunderstanding deepens. When we view others from within the box, we are also blind to the ways we might be contributing to the conflict. We become defensive, protective, and closed off from hearing the other person's point of view. The box creates a mental barrier, preventing us from having an open and honest dialogue. Instead of seeking understanding or connection, we prioritize being right or victorious. Our responses become automatic, and we're more likely to engage in behaviors that escalate the conflict, such as blaming, accusing, or withdrawing. However, the key to breaking free from the box lies in recognizing when we are in it and making the conscious decision to step out. The book teaches that the first step in escaping the box is self-awareness. We must recognize when our thoughts and emotions are leading us to objectify others and view them as less than human. This requires a level of introspection and honesty that can be uncomfortable but is necessary for growth. Once we become aware of our box, we can begin to shift our perspective. Stepping out of the box means choosing to see others as human beings with their own needs, fears, and desires. It means embracing empathy, compassion, and understanding, and it requires us to shift our focus away from our own grievances and onto the needs of others. Instead of seeing others as obstacles to our happiness or success, we begin to see them as partners in the journey toward mutual understanding and peace. This shift in perspective changes everything about how we engage with others. For example, if we are in the box with a colleague, we may focus solely on their mistakes or what they are doing wrong. We might view them as incompetent, and this judgment clouds our ability to work together effectively. However, when we step out of the box, we begin to recognize that our colleague, too, is under pressure and might be struggling with their own challenges. By adopting this perspective, we open the door to more collaborative and supportive interactions. Instead of pointing fingers, we can ask questions like, "How can I support you?" or "What can we do to solve this together?" The impact of stepping out of the box is profound. Not only does it change our behavior toward others, but it also influences how others perceive us. When we treat others with respect, understanding, and empathy, they are more likely to respond in kind. This creates a cycle of trust and cooperation, rather than a cycle of conflict and division. One of the most powerful aspects of the box concept is its universality. We all find ourselves in the box at times, whether we are aware of it or not. The key is not to view ourselves as bad or wrong when we are in the box, but rather to approach these moments with self-compassion and a desire to grow. The more we practice stepping out of the box, the easier it becomes to maintain a mindset of empathy and understanding, even in challenging situations. In our daily lives, we can actively practice getting out of the box by reminding ourselves to check our judgments and assumptions about others. Before reacting to a situation, we can ask ourselves, am I seeing this person as a whole, human being? Or am I objectifying them? This simple question can help shift our perspective and pave the way for more productive and peaceful interactions. Ultimately, stepping out of the box is about reclaiming our humanity and embracing the humanity of others. It's about choosing connection over division and collaboration over confrontation. By recognizing when we are in the box and making the effort to step out, we can transform not just our relationships, but also the way we engage with the world around us. In The Anatomy of Peace, one of the most transformative concepts explored is the idea that peace is not a final destination, but rather a continuous, evolving journey. This is a departure from the common misconception that peace is a singular event or an endpoint that, once achieved, can be left behind. Instead, the book teaches us that peace requires ongoing effort, self-awareness, and intentionality. It's a process that unfolds with every decision we make, every relationship we nurture, and every conflict we resolve. The journey toward peace begins with an understanding that it is not a static achievement, something we arrive at and then maintain effortlessly, but a dynamic state that requires continuous cultivation. Just as we must tend to a garden, peace must be nurtured with attention, care, and commitment. Each day, we make choices that either foster peace or contribute to division, and those choices accumulate to shape the quality of our relationships and the harmony within our communities. One of the key insights of this concept is that peace is not just about resolving conflicts when they arise, but about cultivating the conditions that prevent conflict in the first place. It's about fostering an internal mindset of peace, where we approach situations with patience, understanding, and empathy. This internal peace radiates outward, influencing how we interact with others and how we respond to the world around us. For example, in the context of relationships, whether with family, friends, or colleagues, peace is built gradually over time through acts of trust, respect, and communication. It's not about eliminating disagreements or always getting along, but about how we handle disagreements when they do arise. Do we approach them with an open heart and a willingness to listen, or do we become defensive and combative? Do we choose collaboration over confrontation? These choices, small as they may seem, have a profound impact on the quality of our relationships and the level of peace we experience in our lives. In the book, the authors emphasize that achieving peace involves a conscious effort to continually check our attitudes, behaviors, and reactions. It requires us to be aware of our emotions and to manage them in ways that promote understanding and reconciliation, rather than division. This means choosing patience over frustration, understanding over judgment, and connection over isolation. It also means learning to forgive, not just others, but ourselves, as we make mistakes along the way. Peace is not about perfection, it's about the ongoing effort to make choices that foster harmony, both within ourselves and with others. The journey toward peace also extends beyond individual relationships and into broader societal and global contexts. On a larger scale, achieving peace in our communities, organizations, or even nations is a continual process of building trust, understanding, and cooperation. This requires the same principles we apply in our personal lives: empathy, self-reflection, and a commitment to seeking solutions that respect the needs of all involved. In situations where conflict seems inescapable or when divisions seem insurmountable, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that peace is unattainable. But the anatomy of peace encourages us to view peace as an ongoing pursuit, rather than a momentary resolution. Even in the most challenging circumstances, the pursuit of peace is still possible through intentional action and a mindset committed to growth and understanding. One of the most powerful aspects of this concept is that peace is within our control. While we cannot always control the actions of others or the circumstances in which we find ourselves, we can control how we respond. By choosing to approach every situation, even the most difficult ones, with a mindset rooted in peace, we contribute to a more peaceful world, one interaction at a time. Moreover, peace is not something we can achieve alone. It's a collective effort that requires cooperation and understanding between individuals, groups, and nations. Just as we must cultivate peace within ourselves, we must also extend that peace to others through acts of kindness, patience, and empathy. The ripple effect of these actions can transform not only our own lives but also the communities we belong to. Ultimately, the idea of peace as a continuous journey shifts the focus from a final goal to a way of life. It's a way of being, a mindset, and a commitment to fostering understanding, connection, and harmony in every aspect of our lives. The journey may not always be easy, but it is one that is worth undertaking, for the rewards of living in peace are profound: deeper relationships, greater fulfillment, and a world that is more cooperative, compassionate, and just.